Thank you for the introduction. Thank you all for joining this webinar on careers in embedded system and IoT for beginners. In between the webinar, I might ask few questions. So, in that case, you can just unmute yourself and just give the answers, or you can also type the answers on the chat box. And after the webinar, we have a dedicated Q&A section where I'll be happy to answer all of your questions. So, let's get started. So these are the topics which I'll cover today in the webinar. So I'll give you an overview of the embedded systems, the firmware, and the Internet of Things domain. We'll talk about the career in the embedded systems and how you can start your career in embedded systems as a student. We'll also go through how to prepare for the embedded system interviews, and we'll look about a day in the life of an embedded software engineer. And at the end of the session, you can ask me the Q&A questions, whatever you have. So there are three major career options in the embedded system domain. So you can be an embedded software engineer, a firmware engineer, or an embedded design engineer. So the embedded design engineer basically deals with all the hardware of the embedded systems. So that's basically a position of an hardware engineer. For the software engineer, you will have the embedded software engineer position and the firmware engineer position. Both embedded software engineer and firmware engineers are relatively they are correlated to each other, but they have few differences at their bottom. So let's talk about the overview of an embedded systems. So the embedded systems is basically a combination of a hardware, firmware, and a software. So what do you mean by hardware is the board, the devices where your actual code will run. The firmware consists of like bootloader, all the middleware stacks that we have, or the low-level programming that you have. And the software basically consists of the applications that were designed in order to achieve a particular use case. One of the main things in the embedded system is it is a resource constrained system. So in the embedded system, we have only few kilobytes of RAM and few kilobytes or few megabytes of flash memory. So whenever we are coding or we are writing a software, so it is very important to keep in mind that the target will be a resource constrained system. So we don't have a provisions of writing a big chunk of code that will occupy a lot of memory or a lot of flash memory. The third most important thing is like there are a lot of devices, sensors, actuators, peripherals which are integrated to a embedded hardware in order to communicate with the external world. So our most day-to-day life task will be interfacing this peripherals into our design. Also, the embedded systems are always also used in the real-time applications to meet hard deadlines. So what do you mean by hard deadline is like if the system doesn't respond quickly enough in a given time frame, then it might lead to a catastrophe. Give an example like airbag in our automotive. So if the sensor detects a crash and if the airbag doesn't deploy within a few milliseconds or microseconds, then it can lead to a loss of life and injury. So the hard deadline is very important for the real-time embedded applications. And one of the most important things in the embedded system is like it comes with two different flavors. So some of the devices, it contains operating system that helps in like taking care of the basic tasks like process management, memory management, or you might have a standalone systems in which you work on the bare metal. So these are some of the characteristics of the embedded systems. So the embedded system needs to be a low cost and highly stable. So that's the part that has been taken care by the embedded design engineer. The hardware should be low cost, the hardware should be very reliable, and it should be very stable. While developing application, we also keep in mind that the embedded systems, all the devices, they can run without any external power supply for more than 5 to 10 years. So keeping in mind, so our applications should be targeted for the less power or for the low power modes. Also, all the embedded system, they doesn't have any user interface, or they do have a minimum user interface because that user interface consumes a lot of space and resources, which we don't have in our systems. So coming for the Internet of Things, so the basic part of the Internet of Things is the embedded systems only. So we write embedded software, embedded firmware, that constitutes the Internet of Things. So in the Internet of Things, there are a lot of embedded devices, maybe millions or billions of embedded devices, which are connected, interconnected in a network, and they are just collecting some data and they are sending the data to a gateway. A gateway is a device that is usually connected to an internet. So the gateway takes all the data from all the sensors, actuators, whatever is there, and it sends the data over the cloud. In the cloud, they have multiple technologies like real-time analytics, machine learning, big data. So all these technologies, they do a data processing on a large amount of data, and they provide some insights, they provide some results, and that result is being sent back to our gateway, and then there might be some commands that needs to be sent to an actuators, like to turn on a fan, turn off a fan. So all the things is taken care by the gateway. So Internet of Things is basically consists of three parts. One is the embedded system, another is a network of embedded systems, and third one is the cloud. So for network of embedded systems, we have a lot of IoT network protocols like Bluetooth Low Energy, Zigbee, Thread, 6LoWPAN, and etc. So these are targeted for IoT devices. So the main point in the IoT devices is like these sensors, they are very low power sensors. So in order to communicate, and we all already know that the communication consumes a lot of battery power. So this all protocols are designed to keep in mind that it can take care of the low power requirements of the IoT nodes or the sensors. So as you see, we have three major components. One is the things. The things is basically the embedded devices, the code that we write on the embedded devices. The network is what we have shown, that this networks, it connect all the embedded devices into a network, and then it sends the data to a cloud where all the data processing happens. Okay, I have a question. Okay, so there's a question like how this technology is useful to library operations such as RFID, wireless technology, data storage. Okay, so basically the RFID is nothing. It is like it is used to detect your tag. So this RFID technologies, it's a low, you can say a low distance communication technology. It works for only like few centimeters. So in that case, that technology is like implemented on the sensor part, and the wireless technology is basically used to communicate the data. So one sensor can communicate the data to the other sensors, or it may communicate the data to a gateway which is connected to an internet or cloud, or in some cases we have a sensors that has the processing power and that has the capability to directly send the data over the cloud. So in that case, there is no need for some gateway. It will directly send the data over the cloud. Okay, so the IoT is basically a sensor collects data, a sensor sends the data to the gateway, which is connected to internet. It pushes the data to the cloud. In the cloud, all these technologies, they process on the data and they finally produce an output. That output may be displayed to the user in a UI, or that output might contain some decision making, like to turn on a fan, to turn off a fan, or to command an actuator to do something. And that output or that command is sent back to the gateway, and then that gateway forwards that command to the respective device. So you can see that the Internet of Things is basically also contains some embedded systems. So the basic part is you need to be very proficient in the embedded systems, whether to go into the embedded software domain or as in the Internet of Things domain. Okay. So being a student, this might be one of the main questions, like what basically is the difference between a software engineer and the embedded software engineer? So there are a lot of difference between a software engineer and embedded software engineer. First, we'll talk about a software engineer. So if you want to become a software engineer, then you need to know a lot of programming language like C, C++, Java, Python, Node.js. Also, you need to have knowledge of lots of framework, API services in order to develop and deploy an application. In the software engineering, when you write a code, you don't think about the resource constraint, that you don't think about the amount of memory that you will consume or the processing power. Even in the multi-core architectures, you have 4 or 8 cores. So in that case, your single piece of code can run on different processors. So you have to earn a true parallelism. So you don't really care about like having a less processing powers or like having a less memory. Also, you have a lot of storage and a lot of RAM, and all your algorithms will be designed to take advantage of those processing powers and the storage. And you need to have a knowledge of software debug tools. On the other hand, in the embedded software engineer, you need to know only C, C++, and assembly. You can code the embedded systems on Python also, but it's on like 90 to 95% of the devices that are out in the market, they are purely based on the C programming language. So you have to be very proficient in the C programming language. Also, some of the embedded systems, they also use a C, C++ as their programming language. And being an embedded software engineer, you need to have a good knowledge on the hardware that you are working on, the devices, on the sensors that are going to interface, on the peripherals that you are going to interface, and also you need to have a good knowledge of the embedded CPU architecture, because ultimately your code gonna run on the CPU. So if you know the CPU architecture, you need to be very efficient in order to write your code, because when there is some kind of bottleneck there, so you can directly code it in the assembly language in order to utilize the CPU registers and directly to remove any kind of optimization that will be done by the compiler. So it's very important to know and learn about the CPU architecture. All the algorithms and the data structures or the data processing that you will be writing, you need to keep in mind the resource constraint. You need to keep in mind that all that algorithm that you will be developing will have to consume a very less amount of memory, and it should be fast enough that it doesn't lag the system or it doesn't hop the system. Also, you need to have a knowledge of the embedded operating systems, because a lot of real-time systems uses the embedded operating system. So when you are developing application from the embedded operating systems, you need to utilize that API, you need to utilize all the services or all the APIs they provide. So you need to have a good knowledge on the embedded operating systems. Also, debugging is a fundamental part of being an embedded engineer. So you need to have knowledge on the hardware debug tools like the oscilloscopes or the logic analyzers. And there are also some software debug tools like Wireshark. So in order, or JTAG, so in order to debug your application, in case the application doesn't work, this is the tool you will look for first, and you try to go into the code, you try to go into the device, and you try to see what is happening inside. And one of the most important thing is the toolchain knowledge. So as we know, the GCC is one of the main important toolchain that we use for compiling our code. So for the GCC is basically one toolchain that is being used for all the architecture, be it the ARM architecture, be it the Intel architecture. So for every architecture, the GCC will be used. And the GCC has a lot of different optimization. There are a lot of different procedures. There are a lot of different flags. So you need to have a basic knowledge of the toolchain in order to compile your code efficiently. For this writing software, we use lots of different IDs, and that ID internally uses this GCC toolchain. So having a toolchain knowledge is a good idea. So do you have any questions till now? Okay. Now, what is being as a carrier as a embedded systems? So embedded systems are literally everywhere. So whatever a device you see, be a washing machine, your smart fridge, your car, or maybe your space shuttle, everywhere. So you name a product and or you name an industry, and it's very difficult to find that there are no embedded systems there. Starting from the nuclear power plants to everywhere. So these systems, and if you see that. Each and every day there are a lot of innovations that are coming. There are a lot of new devices that are coming, be it the Apple Watch, be it a Google Hub, or like Alexa. So everywhere you have the embedded systems. So, and there is an increasing demand for embedded engineers to develop, to maintain, and to test these devices. Since the emergence of the IoT network, and we know that the IoT is one of the top 10 technologies right now that will change the future of the next decade. And in the IoT, there are already billions of devices, more than 50 billions of devices that have been connected in the IoT network. And development, deployment, and security of the devices is one of the most important aspects of today's IoT engineer. So, and since there is a high demand of embedded engineer in every sector, like as automotive, aviation, telecom, consumer electronics, defense, space, semiconductors, everywhere. So since there is a high demand for embedded engineer, so it's highly unlikely that this career as an embedded engineer will go down. It has a potential to increase, and we'll see in the upcoming slides that it's a huge potential to be a career of this decade. Now, this is one of the important questions. So being a student, how to start a career in the embedded systems? First and the foremost important thing is you should have a strong coding knowledge. You pick up any language like C, C++, and you start coding on it. You need to have a good understanding of the data structures as well as the algorithms using this language. Also, you need to have a good knowledge on the analog and digital electronics. So being an EC, EEE, and CS graduate, so you might have a lot of analog and digital electronic courses in your curriculum, and those courses will be very helpful when you will be starting your career in embedded systems. If you're an embedded hardware engineer, then these are the must courses that you will be, and this knowledge you'll be using in each and every day in your professional career. But if you are going into the software engineer career, this knowledge of these devices will save you tons of time. You have to figuring out what's wrong with the device. Also, you need to have a good knowledge of the embedded architecture and system. This is both for as a software engineer as a hardware engineer, because ultimately your code is going to be run on an embedded hardware. So you need to have a good knowledge on the embedded architecture in order to optimize your code, because optimization is everyone can code in embedded systems. The main thing is the optimizing the code. Who can code better in the resource constrained environment? Fourth is a networking concept. So if you are going to be pursue a career in IoT engineer, this networking concept is must, because there is a layer 2. You have to interconnect different devices. So you need to get a good understanding of the OSI layer, how the network works, what a bit and bytes work, and also the wireless communication network, like the 6LoWPAN, like BLE networks, Wi-Fi networks, how this network is useful in creating the IoT network. And the most important thing is to have a hands-on experience with microcontrollers. You can see tons of videos, a lot of learning, but without having a hands-on experience, without writing code and testing on in the microcontrollers, it will be very difficult in the future as an embedded software engineer career or any embedded systems career. So these are the 3 things that I think that makes you a perfect and that will boost you up to start your career in the embedded systems. First one is coding. Do as much coding you can. Learn the things out there in the internet. There are you can say there are tons of information out there. There are lots of different microcontrollers, lots of different websites that provide you free learning courses on embedded systems. And finally, you have to implement whatever you learn. So suppose you learn a timer peripheral, then pick up a microcontroller and implement what you have learned. Implement the timer peripheral on your things. And once you start implementing, you'll never forget that stuff. One of the most important thing in the as an embedded engineer is you can say there are more than thousands of devices. So in a project, you might come across with any of the random devices that you haven't worked on, but the logic remains same. The underlying logics remain same. So if you implement a peripheral, or if you implement a sensor device, you code the device, so it will be very useful. So if you get some random devices, you need to.
I applied it.
Hello. Do you have a question? Okay. So in that case, so if some random devices come up and you need to do a coding you have never done before, so if your basics are clear, if you have a hands-on experience, then it will be very effective and it will be less time consuming in order to implement all those things. So being an so in my experience, so one of the most important thing to become a proficient as a career in embedded engineer is to ability to debug the code. So as I said, the coding can be done by anybody. So if you take a book and if you learn the concepts, you can do a coding. The ability to debug the application, debug the firmware, and debug the hardware is the most important part as a career of embedded engineer. So let me tell you one thing. So what is the most fascinating part of our day-to-day life is that no devices is a black box for us. So if you give a device, because you'll be programming it at the low level, so you'll have to know the device in and out. So whatever you write at the high level language or whatever you write in the C, it ultimately has to be run inside the hardware. So debugging the application of firmware and hardware is the most important part as a day-to-day life in the career of embedded engineer.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Your voice is breaking a bit.
Okay. Is it fine now?
Yeah.
Presentation is not visible. Is it visible or not?
No, sir, it's not visible.
Okay.
Sir,
Now?
could you please turn on the presentation and start again?
Okay. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. Okay. So do you have any questions till now in any of the slides or anything you want me to repeat again? Okay, so here is one question. So how many of you know what an Arduino is and have used them in your projects? Okay. Yeah, so okay, so for those who have used it, tell me like, is it very easy to use the Arduino or it has a like long learning curve? Yeah. So okay, the next question. So do you think like learning the Arduino fully will make you understand all the concepts of a microcontroller? Yes. So that brings us to our next slide. Okay. Yeah, so this is the most asked questions. So is learning Arduino a good software to learn the embedded systems? So yeah, so Arduino is very good for a quick prototyping and for proof of concept. So you have an idea in mind and you need to know whether it could be implemented or not. So you pick up an Arduino board, you do a coding, and that's it. And you can see the results straight away. Therefore, but the thing is, like, if you have used Arduino, you know that all the APIs are very highly abstracted. So like if you want to use any of the peripherals, so it's like one or two functions you need to call and yes, you will be done. But actually the embedded systems is not that easy. And since it's been too easy, it is meant for hobbies and educational platforms. It are nowhere used anywhere in the industry. So there will be like very little, you can say, products where we can see that they have used Arduino in their devices. And the most important thing is the Arduino lacks the inbuilt debugging support. So you have to spend a lot of money to get the external debugger and to debug your application if it doesn't work. So what are the alternatives of Arduino that you can use in order to learn the embedded software from the ground level? Okay, so Yeah, so one of the important thing I need to ask, like, can anybody explain what happens when you write a code in C program? And like, suppose you write a code for any of the peripheral or any of the peripheral. So what happens after that? How that particular code is been executed inside the device? Okay, so once you, yeah, it converts it into the machine language code, and that machine language code is being run by the processor. But what you actually do in your embedded system coding is you actually program the registers of the device. So if you see, like if you have experience with any of the data sheets, whatever the device you are using, whether it be the timer peripheral, your ADC peripheral, your any of the sensor, like a temperature sensors, pressure sensor, any of the sensor, your device manufacturer will provide some set of registers. You write the value into those registers, and then once you written those values into registers, you program that device. So suppose you need a timer module and you need to put a timer of like around 5 minutes. So 5 minutes is basically 300 seconds. So you write the 300 second into a particular register that the vendor has already given. So you just access those registers and then you write that value and then you start the timer. So after that, there is some enable bit there. You write that bit and then the timer module will start. So all our coding that we've done is basically we are writing to the registers. That's all we do in the embedded software programming. So yes, as you mentioned, there are a lot of alternatives to Arduino. 8051 is a very good platform. So most of the college curriculums does contains 8051 as a microcontroller. So in the 8051 controller, you can write on the high level language as well as in the assembly language. So that is one of the good controller to start with. There are other controllers, but 8051 is a pretty old controller. It's an 8-bit controller, and currently we have like 32 bits controller that are being in the market at the same price of 8051. So some of the alternatives like which you can use, and these controllers are actually being used in the industry. So if you learn this controller, then it will be very useful for you because you will be working on this controller in your future company where you will be working. So the ST Microelectronic STM is a very popular controller, and that is one of the best resources. They have a good training material, they have a good data sheets, reference manual, and there are a lot of books out there, so you can learn each and every peripheral. And the best thing is you can directly program the, you can say directly program the registers. So you can write a driver, you can directly program the registers, and there are a lot of APIs that is being provided, but these are not abstracted. So in order to use that API, you need to have a knowledge of the how embedded system works. So the Texas Instrument MSP 430-432 is like a industry lead controller. So in all of the industries, we use this as for developing our programs. And the CC series is for RF communication. So if you want to do any RF communication, we'll go for the CC series. BeagleBone Black is also good alternatives. And if you want to practice the real-time operating system, or you have to, so this is basically a little bit complex than the other microcontroller, but it's a very good controller to get started with. Nordic Semiconductor controllers, NRF529 series, so they provides all this stack, the BLE thread, ZigBee, GPS, you can say LTE. So if you want to work with the wireless sensor protocols, so you can go with the NRF52. And the most important part is like the learning never ends. So you need to experience with the, you need to have experiment with the software stack like USB, Wi-Fi. You can add a lot of sensors to your devices. You can start programming on that. Also, you can do a low-level programming, and you need to debug the issues. So whenever you get some issues, you just debug it to get to know, it will also increase your understanding. And it's very important if you can explore and contribute to the open source. So we'll get to the open source in a bit. So The most important thing is like, okay, so these are the skill sets that we need to, but how we can start learning this skill set. So for programming language, I will suggest to start with C, and also you need to have a knowledge of assembly. So it's very important to have a knowledge of assembly. C++, Python, if you have a time, you can go for it. C++, you can go for it. Python, we don't exactly use it. We use it as a scripting language, that's it. We don't really use it for programming the microcontrollers, except for Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi uses Python. But in fact, you can code the Raspberry Pi in C also. So these websites are very good. So the Geek for Geeks, you can always go to there and you can learn about the data structures and algorithms over there. HackerRank is a very good website to practice the data structures and algorithm question. Stack Overflow, this is one of the websites you'll be using in your lifetime till you are in a professional. So it's the best way to look for a question, and it's pretty much possible that somebody have already asked the questions or asked a doubt that you are facing right now. And the LeetCode is a very good website for like practicing the competitive programming. So they have a tons of hundreds of you can say the programming questions, and you can start practicing. And this ranges from medium level to high level. So one of the most important thing is like when you are going for the embedded software interview, the most important thing is the first round will be mainly your coding round. So you need to be very good at the coding. So LeetCode is a good platform to start your coding, competitive programming. So this is basically the learning curve for the embedded systems. So as I mentioned, you need to get a knowledge of analog and digital electronics. You should also understand the networking concepts. For the embedded architecture, you should have a good knowledge of the computer architecture as well as the operating systems. Toolchain knowledge is must, being an embedded engineer. Real-time operating systems. So it is very often that nowadays a lot of projects uses the real-time operating system as their operating systems. Obviously, you need to have a hands-on on the microcontroller. In the industry, we majorly use Linux as our operating system. We don't go for the Windows for the embedded system. So you need to have a good knowledge of the Linux, how the Linux works, and how the Linux terminal, what is the Linux shell, etc. Also, you need to have a good understanding of the communication protocols. So, and if you are like working with any of the wireless stack, then this is the must. Wireless sensor networks. If you are going into the IoT domain, you need to have a good understanding of wireless sensor networks. And sometimes it's good to have a little bit knowledge of like the cloud technologies, the AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. Because being an IoT engineer, you will be pushing your data to some cloud. So mostly we push it to some broker like MQTT broker, but in some cases you need to directly interface with the Azure cloud. So in order to do that, it's good to have just a basic understanding of how this this web technology or this cloud works. For the online resources, so there are a lot of resources available on the MOOCs. So MIT and NAPTEL are the top ones. So you can just browse to any of the courses to learn. Maybe it's operating system, computer architecture. So these all are the free. Udemy, Coursera, edX, Udacity, they do. Coursera do have a free course, but all the other three do have the paid course. Udemy is very good if you want to learn a hands-on experience. So there are a lot of different courses available in Udemy related to microcontrollers, related on STM microcontrollers or the TI microcontrollers, in which they give a good understanding of how to do a hands-on coding, and they like use different peripherals to do the coding. So Udemy is one of the website you can look for it. Also, there are a lot of conferences like the Embedded Linux conference. So whatever latest is being happening in the embedded industry or some new technology, some new innovation pop up. So this is the one of the conference that you can get to know with the embedded industry. There are a lot of vendor specific training. So the vendors like the ST Microelectronics, the TI who manufacture the boards, so they do provide training. So that training is very good in order to understand the architecture, and also they provide a lot of webinars on weekly basis. There are also a lot of community webinars that you can attend. And the important thing is, in order to understand the embedded systems, so you need to explore open source. So as you know, the Linux operating system is an open source project. So there are a lot of open source projects that are really good, and you might come across with that. So their coding standard is one of the biggest thing that you can adapt in your day-to-day coding thing, because they use a different coding standards, and their standards are pretty much par with how the industry expects the standards. And it's very important, and if you can contribute to the open source, then it will be like proving that you know stuff and you have done something. Because as you know, in embedded system there is no as such certifications like in cloud and other software engineering. We have a lot of certification provided by Microsoft, Google, etc. But in embedded systems we don't have any software so certification, sorry. So this is the only thing that you can show to your employers, that you are really interested in the domain and you have contributed to the open source. So one of the best thing to learn embedded systems is to just pick up a board and start coding on it. Hackster is a good website. So in Hackster, there are a lot of different projects that have been provided, also the full guide. So you can check out that website for your next project ideas. GitHub is the industry-led developer, basically source control that we use in our industry. So every company will have their own GitHub repository, and you need to push your code or whatever code changes you have made to the GitHub. So learning GitHub is also one of the learning curves. You need to learn that, because ultimately you will be, after the end of the day, you will be pushing your code to the GitHub. Data sheets. So you need to understand what the data sheet is. You need to summarize the data sheet. So data sheet contains all the specification for the devices, the registers, the register addresses. And once you understand that data sheet, you will be pretty much comfortable in coding that particular device. And embedded.com is one of the oldest, you can say, the blog that contains the technical articles that explain the various aspects of embedded software and hardware. So this, I think, is a 7-step success solution. So start with programming using C, and then you will go to programming using embedded C, and then try to make complex application using C. And then you go with the advanced embedded application like the software stack, like USB stack, or the networking like BLE, Wi-Fi, other thing. Then you go with some fine handling applications, some system level programming in the Linux, also the network applications, and you need to be very proficient in the debugging using C. After you completed this 5 steps, then these 2 are basically for the advanced level. So for embedded networking, RTOS. So once you are very proficient with this, you will find this thing very interesting as well as very easy. And the last one is the Linux internals, developing device driver and embedded Linux. Being a student, you are not, expected to learn this, or you are not expected to knowing this. But after you spend 3 to 5 years in a professional industry, then you will be expecting to learn this thing. So the 7th step, the Linux internal developing device driver embedded Linux, that constitutes a firmware engineer profile. So this first 6 will constitute as your embedded software engineer profile, and the 7th one constitutes a firmware engineer. So if you go for like a firmware engineer job or the medium level firmware engineer job, you will be required to know all these things. Also, these are the some of the job titles that you can get as a career in embedded system. This is embedded software engineer, firmware engineer, design engineer, embedded network engineer, taking care of all the IoT networks, embedded security engineer. Whenever we say of network, whenever we say of cloud, then the first thing that came into mind is the security. Since the hacking and the cyber criminals are getting increasing day by day, and the IoT network is one of the most vulnerable network with embedded security. So this is one of the most interesting job title that you can get, embedded security engineer. And then the other 2 are the embedded test engineers for all testing the codes, and the last is the IoT engineer, that is like in the IoT domain. So the job scenario, you can see like the embedded engineering jobs are not going anywhere. So there is like 76% growth in the embedded engineering. And as we have already seen that since this field is so vast and each and every device will contain some kind of embedded systems in it. So this job is not going away and there is a huge demand for engineers, highly skilled engineers in this domain. So, and the last thing that I talk about is like what it be like a day in a life of an embedded software engineer. So, what actually the embedded software engineer do in their day-to-day life? So, most of the time you'll be understanding the data sheets, the reference manual, and the schematics of the devices, sensors. You will be developing algorithms and programming logic for the data manipulation, for storage, for applications, or whatever the use case that you are running. Then the major task is to optimize your algorithm to run on the resource constrained devices, because it's the optimization that is like the ultimate thing. So if you can optimize in a very good way, in a very better way, then you are a good engineer. A lot of time of your day-to-day will spend in debugging the application code or debugging the software stack, drivers, CPU registers, memory, in order to identify the bugs, in order to know why your code is not working. At the end of the day, you will be working on a small subsystem of an entire project. So you will be collaborating with other engineers for their code review or for your code review, and you will be responsible for merging all the codes into a single project. So in that case, the GitHub is very important to learn. Then you will be testing and optimizing applications for faster execution and smaller memory footprint. And then you'll be using a lot of Google for like quick search and the Stack Overflow to, if you come across any of the problems, so you'll just go to Stack Overflow and see if somebody already has a solution for that. And obviously you need to have a cup of coffee in between this. So there are 4 insider tips that I would like to give for you to become a successful embedded engineer. Is to have a good grasp on the data structures and algorithm. You need to have a good knowledge of the register level programming, debugging. Try to explore the open source projects and try to contribute to them. And if possible, try to participate in hackathons, conferences, webinar trainings, because that will increase your practical knowledge. So if you have any questions, you can connect to me on LinkedIn or you can directly mail to me. So that's all from my side, and now we are open for the QA session.